I'm joined now by Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont. Senator, thanks so much for joining us, and happy Father's Day. Let's begin with this week's horrible shooting. You said on the Senate floor that it was carried out by someone who had apparently volunteered for your campaign. Has law enforcement been in touch with you or any members of your staff to try to find out more about him?
Not in touch with me. I am not aware that they have been in touch with my staff. And I just want to wish Representative Scalise a very, very quick recovery. What happened was a tragedy, unacceptable. There should not be any violence associated with politics in America.
On a human level, what was it like for you when you heard the shooter was one of your supporters? Did you look at his Facebook page? What was your reaction?
Well, let me just say this. In our campaign, we had hundreds of thousands of volunteers. We had rallies that spoke in person to over 1.4 million people. We had rallies in some of the poorest communities of states. I remember in the South Bronx. There was zero violence, no violence at all. And I am absolutely convinced that the virtually all people associated with our political movement understand you have the right to stand up, debate, you have the right to protest, but violence is not acceptable. So obviously it was distressing to find out that this particular person had been a volunteer, I believe, in Iowa for a period of time.
I want to read you a tweet from a Democratic political consultant named James Devine. He's based in New Jersey. He wrote, quote, "We are in a war with selfish, foolish, and narcissistic rich people. Why is it a shock when things turn violent?" And then he wrote, hashtag hunt Republican congressman. In an interview with a local news site, Devine said, quote, "If you want to invite a class war, then you have to expect people to fight back at some point," unquote. Now, Senator, as you note, you have not only never advocated violence, you have condemned it repeatedly, but you have been speaking the language of revolution for many years. When you see a comment like this from this political consultant, and then you see what happened on Wednesday, are you concerned that some individuals are able to take your rhetoric as a literal call to arms?
Well, I think there's sometimes rhetoric on all sides that are not quite acceptable. Jake, my hero, political hero in recent American history is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And King not only advocated nonviolence, what he understood is that the only way you make real change, whether it is racial justice, whether it is social justice, economic justice, is when millions of people come together, stand up, and fight back. That's what we have to do right now. But we don't do it in a violent way that is unacceptable and, in fact, counterproductive. Now, right now, what we are seeing in Washington with this health care bill, where the Republican leadership wants to throw 23 million Americans off of health insurance, raise premiums for older workers, defund Planned Parenthood, cut Medicaid by over $800 billion. This is the worst piece of legislation to have passed the Congress since I have been in Congress. It is an outrage, and it has to be protested, and we have to make sure that nothing like that gets past the Senate. But it has to be done, of course, in a nonviolent way. And I would also add that the Trump budget that was presented a couple of weeks ago would provide $3 trillion in tax breaks to the top 1% at a time when we have massive levels of income and wealth inequality, and make massive cuts for working class families in terms of health care, nutrition, education, and whatnot. So I think this is a moment where the American people have got to stand up, fight back to a Congress which is out of touch with where working families are. But it goes without saying that violence is not part of that process.
A source telling CNN that Senate Democrats are currently weighing whether to bring the Senate chamber's business to a halt in an effort to pry open what are currently secret deliberations on health care. You're a member of the Democratic Senate leadership. Can you confirm whether this is going to happen?
Jake, I think that the Democrats in the Congress should do everything possible, A, to defeat that legislation, which is, again, to my mind, unspeakable. How do you throw 23 million people off of health insurance and at the same piece of legislation give tax breaks to the wealthiest folks in this country? That has got to be defeated. But second of all, as you've indicated, we have an insane process. Insane. Here you have legislation which deals with 1/6 of the American economy. That's the health care situation. And there are Republicans who haven't even seen this legislation, and certainly no member in the Democratic caucus has. What kind of process is it that when you deal with an issue that impacts tens of millions of people in this country, Republicans don't even have the guts to allow it to go to a committee where we can have an open hearing, where questions can be asked? It seems to me that what they want to do, because this legislation is so bad, is keep it secret, keep it hidden, and in the last possible second, rush it before the Senate and get a vote within a few hours. That is beyond belief.
So I'm going to take that, unless you disagree, as a confirmation that Senate Democrats, you're in favor of Senate Democrats bringing the chamber's business to a halt to pry open.
I am in favor of the American people and members of Congress doing everything that we can to defeat that horrific piece of legislation that will hurt tens and tens of millions of people in our country.
I want to ask you, last week you clashed with Russell Vought. He's President Trump's nominee for Deputy Director of the Office of Management and Budget. You went after him for writing that Muslims, quote, do not know God and that they stand condemned. Take a listen.
The statement made by Mr. Vought is indefensible, it is hateful, it is Islamophobic, and it is an insult to over 1 billion Muslims throughout the world.
Senator, are you saying that someone is necessarily hateful and Islamophobic if they believe in their private life and express that in their private life the only path to God is through Jesus Christ?
No, absolutely not. Look, what our Constitution, one of the great parts of our Constitution, is to protect freedom of religion. You practice what religion you want, I do, Mr. Vought does, that's what it's about. But at a time when we are dealing with Islamophobia in this country, when you have 1.2 billion people who are Muslims around the world, to have a high-ranking member of the United States government essentially say, oh, Islam is a second-class religion. And this all took place, by the way, in terms of his defending the firing of a professor at Wheaton College because she showed solidarity with Muslims who were being attacked through an anti-Muslim effort. So that seemed to be unacceptable as a government official. In terms of his freedom of religion, he and every other American has the right to hold any point of view they want.
Let's turn to the special election taking place Tuesday in Georgia. Jon Ossoff, the Democratic candidate, says he opposes higher taxes on anyone, even the wealthy. He opposes single-payer health care. You have voiced doubts about whether Ossoff is a progressive. Are you nonetheless urging your supporters to back him, even though he seems to disagree with many of your core principles?
No, I very much want Ossoff to win. His views are a lot better than his Republican opponents. I think it'd be really great if Democrats could pick up a seat in the House. But what I also believe is, that is a particular district in Georgia, a conservative district, been held by Republicans for several decades. But what I also believe is if the Democratic Party is going to turn around its fortune, it's going to have to mobilize people at the grassroots level in 50 states in this country. It needs a progressive agenda to say that we have to raise the minimum wage to a living wage, that we have to join the rest of the industrialized world and guarantee health care to all people as a right, in my view, through a Medicare for all single-payer program, that we have got to deal in a very fundamental way with climate change, transform our energy system away from fossil fuel, pay equity for women. I think if the Democrats are going to be successful, they need a strong progressive agenda that gets working people and young people involved in the political process.
All right. Happy Father's Day, Senator. Good to see you as always.
You too.